I love the fact that I literally hated Fortnite. And when I say hated, I legit, like, when I saw my favorite streamer playing Fortnite for the first game, I turned off the stream. That's how bad it was. And now before and after studying, before and after making videos, I literally just go like, I should play a game of Fortnite. And I'm actually winning. So this is my second win that I got through like 150 games, which I'm really proud of, honestly. I am so proud that I really hope you guys are proud as well. And this is the reason I'm sharing this fact with you. So are you proud of me? Be proud of me then. But yes, as you can see, we're back with another episode of the survival series in Unity, and I fixed it so it's actually Unity 2018 we're going to be using, which you'll see when we get into the episode. But in this episode, we'll specifically take a look at the crafting system and begin with it. So we're not going to go really deep, but you know, we're going to be creating the basics of it and kind of code out the part where, you know, the required items are matched, they meet the requirements, and boom, you're able to craft an item. If not, then obviously it's going to tell you, hey, you need more of this item. But now with that being said, guys, let's get right into the video and see how we're creating the crafting system.
This wildfire, so thinking of me, feels like flying while I'm on my feet. As the flames get higher, it's getting hard to breathe.
Hey, what's up guys, it is Sam here and welcome back to another episode of the FPS survival series. Like I said in the intro, we are going to take a look at the crafting system in this video specifically, and we'll be doing the basics and we'll cover up the basics and the kind of like how we begin and, you know, create the system itself, and then we'll get into the UI later on. But for now, we're just kind of gonna, you know, code the logic behind it, how you check for required items, how, you know, you require wood for walls to be built and stuff like that. By the way, guys, if you still enjoy these series and you want to watch more of these episodes where we cover up, you know, the FPS survival series in Unity, make sure to drop a like. Those thumbs ups are very important. In fact, those like goals are very important because I kind of like statistically take what is a little bit more difficult and put them onto our like goals onto our videos, and I want to see the like goals being met so that I know that you guys like watching these episodes, because, you know, view count is important, but it's not everything. If you don't get the enough likes to match it up, it's gonna be like, yeah, what are we doing here, right? So if you do like and if you do enjoy the video, make sure to drop a thumbs up. It's extremely appreciated. Like, I can't actually describe how important it is for a content creator. So anyway, guys, let's begin with the video. First and foremost, let's go ahead and create a very simple UI for our for the crafting itself. So what we're gonna do, we already have a canvas here. And what we do is basically within the canvas we have an inventory background, which is pretty much the background itself, which is going to be a little bit dark colored, you know, kind of like a raw image. I think it is. Yeah, it's actually a raw image. So, and then we also have a slot holder where we basically have all the slots for our inventory. What I think we'll do is basically when we get into game, you know, you can open up the inventory by pressing I. We're going to be moving those slots to the left just a little bit, and then we'll have a crafting kind of like a window right here, right over here, to the right side of the slots and to the inventory. So we can actually begin by creating that UI for our crafting. But first and foremost, we obviously want to make a little bit of room for it. So what we can do is, let me see here. I actually forgot how oh yeah, we disabled the canvas. So there we go. All right, so we're gonna enable the canvas manually for now, and we are going to move the let me see here, just gonna zoom out a little bit so that we can see the slots. Now we're gonna move the slots to, okay, so it's inverted, there we go. So I'm looking from the other side of the rectangle or the UI, so when I move it to the right side, it moves to the left inside of our game. So be cautious when you're doing this. You're gonna be able to see it, but, you know, just be cautious. There we go. I think that's actually good enough, and then we'll have a window here for the crafting window itself. What I'm actually going to do to make it easier is I'm going to copy the first slot here and paste it, and very important, remove it out of the slot holder. There we go. And in fact, we are going to remove the slot component from it, and we can keep everything else except for the name. We're also going to rename it to, let's say, crafting window. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, it should be good. And then we can also move it here, and we are going to resize this obviously to match the total size so that we have it a little bit, you know, friendly for our OCD friends like myself. I don't actually think that I have OCD. I don't get, like, I get bothered, but it's not like, you know, the entire world for me. I kind of want it to be, you know, a little bit aligned, but I don't think that it's really that important right now. Like, I don't want to spend too much time onto, you know, doing this right now. Like I said, the coding part is a very important part here, but for now this UI is good enough, I think. And what we're gonna do next is I'm actually gonna go ahead and copy and paste this crafting window that we have, and I am now going to reduce the size in y-axis of the one that we copied, so the duplicated one. And in fact, I'm also gonna rename this to craftable item 1, okay? And I am going to change the color just a little bit to make it a little bit darker grayish. Maybe that's actually pretty good. There we go. And let's move this down a bit, just a notch. There we go. Maybe we can even resize this for just a bit. Nice. So that we can tell apart between the you know, the background and obviously the item itself, because this is going to be our very important element, which is going to contain everything from the item and the name, etc. And it's what we're going to actually click on in order to craft. Next up, what we're gonna do is we are going to create our own script for the crafting manager, which is going to be the script where we handle all of our craftable items and so on, and all their icons, etc. So we can actually enter our scripts folder here, and we can create a new C# script and call it crafting manager. There we go. And we're actually going to go ahead and add it to our crafting window object, not the craftable item, but the window itself. And we can crafting manager. I think I had created one already. Yeah, I did. Yep. So this was one that I created for testing purposes. You don't need, you know, this is nothing that you have to have right now. I'm just gonna recreate it because the name changed a little bit when I created one more, because it was like not overriding. So crafting manager, boom, and I'm gonna add it to the crafting window once again. Oh, it's already added, so cool. All right, there we go. So you can open up the script now. And like I said, it should be added to crafting window. Let's see if Visual Studio actually launches on the correct monitor. I think it's actually set it. Yeah, I correctly set the default monitor for Visual Studio, it seems. I think that's what I did. I don't know. I did some black magic and it worked, like legit. So we're actually going to create another script here, and we can call this craftable item. We can actually go ahead and add this to our craftable item 1 game object that we have created. So we're gonna add that. Boom, open it up. So we can actually go ahead and say public int, and we are going to say required items. And we're gonna have a public game object, which is going to be an array, and this is going to be the required item, or maybe just item. There we go. To make it a little bit easier to tell apart from this and this, so between those two. And now just do like this. So you go ahead and add using Unity engine.ui up here. And we are going to say mono behavior I pointer enter handler. There we go. So this is going to allow us to use the I pointer enter, or basically the pointer enter. What was the void called, by the way? On pointer enter. There we go. So we can say public void on pointer enter, and we are going to need a few, or one pointer event data. There we go. So pointer event data. Just wanted to make sure to check it out and ensure that everything is correct. So we're gonna say using Unity engine dot event systems. There we go. Now we're not receiving an error, and obviously we're gonna be able to use this here. I think, yeah, we can actually set it to be hovered equal to false and hovered equal to be true when we're actually hovering with our mouse pointer. So we're gonna have a private bool hovered, which is going to be what we use to detect if we are actually having the mouse over the element or not. So we can also use a public void on pointer exit pointer event data, not that way, there we go. And we're going to add one more thing here, which is going to be iPointer exit handler. There we go. So basically this is for entering, this is for exiting, this is for entering, and this is for exiting. So they kind of like complete each other, I guess, because that's what what's required when you're using the event system. So we can also have a public void update, which is going to be where we're going to detect if hovered equal to true or not. And speaking of which, we're now going to set hovered to be true and false. So where we enter with our pointer, we can say hovered equal to true, because we are hovering them, and the otherwise obviously hovered equal to false. There we go. So now we're going to be checking if hovered equal to true and else. So if we are and not. I don't even think that we need an else, because we're not going to do anything specific if we are not hovering, obviously, because everything is going to be happening when we are hovering. So in here, we're now going to, check if the items that are required are actually met by the inventory of our player. So to begin with, we can actually go ahead and create a private game object player, and we can have a public void start. There we go. Not that way. There we go. And here we're gonna say player equal to game object dot find with tag player. So basically this is going to check all of our game objects inside of our scene when we're playing the game or when we start the game, and it's going to find player because it is tagged as player. If your player is not tagged as player, go ahead and click here and pick player. That's literally it. So yeah, and now we're going to ensure that we get the inventory of our player as well, and check if the item database contains all those items that we actually need. Actually, something that I thought of also, we can add another private, or maybe we can make it public this time. We can have another game object and call this item database. And the reason is because we need to get the item database of our player in order to actually detect what items are in there and, calculate if the amount of items are actually matching. So we're now going to go ahead and click on our craftable item in Unity. And inside of our item database, or for the item database, we are going to, or you know what? When you have a lot of items, you probably don't want to do this, right? So what you can do is, hold on, have we tagged the item manager as something at all? No, we haven't. So let's go ahead and add a new tag and call it item manager. I think we can say that, yeah. So no spaces in between, for me at least. If you want to have space, that's completely fine, but I'm not using that. I just want to make it clear. And in here, instead of having, we can actually change the name to item manager to make it more clear. There we go. And now let's let it compile. There we go. And instead of doing that, we're just gonna turn it into private, and we can say item manager equal to game object dot find with tag item manager, just like we did with the player. And now it's gonna receive that item manager, and we're now going to check if the item is actually being or if every item that is required is pretty much inside of that item manager. So first and foremost, if we are hovering over the with our mouse over the this very specific item itself that is craftable, then we are going to check if we actually press the mouse button. So if input.get mouse button down 0, meaning we literally click left mouse button on that item, then we are going to perform specific things, such as let's say check for required items. Okay, so this is going to be a void that we called upon, and we're going to have it here. So we can say public void check for required items. There we go. I don't know why I'm having such a difficult time with writing out stuff today. So we're gonna check for required items, and for doing that, we're first and foremost going to get the amount of items that are inside of the item manager. And we can do that easily by saying integer items in manager equal to, we can just say item manager dot transform dot child count. Okay, so this is going to get the amount of children that are inside of item manager or a part of item manager. And now we are going to create a for loop which will actually check for every item that is required and go through that item manager once for every single item that is required. So we're gonna say for int I equal to 0, I lower than items in manager. Then we can say I++. Or actually, instead of items in manager, we need to use the amount of required items. Because we're gonna run this for loop, not the amount of times there are amount of items in the item manager, but for the amount of times that are required for every item to exist. So if we need 2 items, we're just gonna check it twice instead of checking 10 times for 2 items. That's unnecessary. So now we're gonna say if let me see here. We could actually just say like item manager dot transform dot child get child. Yeah, we could perhaps say get child I equal to we could perhaps say, we call it item, right? Yeah, item I. Then we do something specific like print item found. And we can actually go to Unity now, and what we're gonna do is first and foremost we can set required item to be 1 and size to be 1, and as of the element we can go to our prefabs and pick the item from here and drag it into our element 0. Now one more thing that we're gonna do is first and foremost we can actually disable the canvas component so that we make it invisible. And let's go ahead and zoom in on our player, and the item is here. So what we're gonna do is we can actually move the item a little bit forward like that. There we go. So now, okay, so we're getting a null reference error, but it means that the clicking is at least working, so that's perfect. Let me see where we actually get that error. Let's see, 39. 39 items in manager, item manager that transform the child count. So we're not getting the item manager. Item manager. Huh, that's weird. Oh, it's not tagged. My bad. Sorry, it's not tagged. So we created the tag, but we never tagged it as the item manager. So after you create it, you add a tag, then you also have to tag it. That's a little bit, I wish Unity kind of like did something to fix that. It's not a fixable thing, like it's not broken, but you know what I'm saying. It's something that would be a great addition for that. Maybe I can even create an editor tool for that. Okay, so now we have tagged it, and we should be able to at least click on it. Transform child out of bounds. All right, let's see what this means. Oh, I see why we're getting that error. So we are trying to check if item manager dot transform. We're trying to get a child object of the item manager, but there is none. So it's like, which item am I trying to get? So it throws an error. So we're gonna cut this for loop, the entirety of it, and we're gonna first and foremost have an if statement saying, if items in manager greater than 0, then we're gonna be able to run the for loop. I also realized one more thing here. When we run a for loop for the amount of required items, it's correct. We're obviously checking for the amount of items that are inside of our, or for this basically the craftable item. But we also need a for loop for checking if for the amount of items that are as a child of our item database, basically meaning the amount of items that the player has. Because otherwise, if we only check twice for the required items and check 8, try checking 8 items inside of our item database, we're not going to be able to do that because we're only checking twice. So we can have another for loop inside of that for loop, and we can say for int y, I guess I could say equal to 0, y lower than, let's call it z. Int z equal to 0, z lower than, we can this time obviously say the items in manager, z++. So we're now also checking for the amount of items that are inside of our inventory. And now we can try this. So if item manager .transform.get child, basically, oh, and we also have to set that to that, and we keep I in this, but change this one to Z. The reason is because we are checking for the required items, which is 2 items that we have, for example, and obviously we want to check if that required item twice, or the first one or the second one, is one of these 8 items that are inside of our inventory. These 8 and 2 items, there are just examples. Basically, that's what we're trying to do here. One more thing that we want to change up here is, if you look at this, perhaps, once we have this item here, it's named water, and it's a completely different kind of, item that we have added to our game. And we are now, by code, trying to check if the item manager, the child of basically the item that we have inside of our inventory, which is the water that we pick up, is literally the same as the item prefab that we set, which is not, obviously, because this is an instantiated kind of like a clone out of it, but this is completely different. So what we can do instead is we can get child Z and check for get component. We can say item and say item type, or just type, right? Yeah, equal to this items dot get component item boom dot type. So basically we check if the type of this item that is inside of our inventory is the same as the item type that is for our basically the item that we are trying to find, if it's required or not. Alright guys, I actually found an issue here. So what we're doing here is a little bit wrong. The reason is I commented this code because I was troubleshooting by myself just to save a little bit of time for you guys. What I found out is when we're saying if items in manager is over 0 is completely fine, but then we have a starting for loop which defines the amount of times we are going to check for every item. Now the thing is, we need to check, first and foremost, we need to run a for loop for the amount of items that we have inside of our inventory. If we do it this way, you can have only one single, let's say, water inside of your inventory, and you require 3, but it's only going to check for 1. And if it checks for 1 and then finds 1, it'll be completely fine, because it will check 3 times for that one item, and it will find it 3 times too. So instead of making it very complex, we're just going to recode this just a little bit. So instead of using this way, we can actually comment this code here. So you just put that, and we can do like this. There we go. So we're pretty much going to do the same thing, but we're going to invert it. So we're going to instead say for int I equal to 0, I lower than items in manager I plus plus. There we go. And we are now going to have the other for loop, which is this one, and paste it here. Maybe we can do it like this. Hold on. Boom, boom, and boom. And then we need to paste that. Now we want to change this I to Z, obviously, like we did with the other one. So Z boom, Z there. Nice. So now we're pretty much going to have the same if statement like we did before, but we are going to invert these as well. So we need to change this to I and change this to Z. And we also need a variable, by the way, which is going to be called integer found items, or maybe items found equal to 0 at start, because when we click, we want to set it to 0. So after that, we're actually going to say, instead of printing item found, or actually we can keep it, it's pretty nice. Then we're going to say found, or items found plus plus, and we are also going to break this for loop so that we, classify that we actually have found it, because if we have found it, we don't want to run it one more time, we just want to break it there, boom, it's done, and then it repeats from this for loop, because we're not breaking this one. So, and we also need an if statement, which is outside of both of these for loops, because we don't want to run the for if statement several times. So we just say if items found greater or equal to required items, then Yeah, we don't really need a bracket there. Then we're going to print all items are found. Okay, so now I did a little bit of tweaking inside of our Unity scene, but I'm gonna change it back to what it was before so that you guys don't, miss out on this. So I duplicated for another item, which I removed now so that you guys don't get confused. And one more thing that I did was I went to craftable item and put the required item to 2, which I want to change back to 1, and also 1 for this one. So now if we play the game and walk over this water item and press this button, it will say that item is found and all items are found because we only require one item, which is the water type of item, and it checks our inventory and says, hey, there's actually a water type of item. Now though, if we do like this, we only have one water in our scene, and we go to the craftable item and we put required item to 2, and we also put the size to 2, and just assign one more water, right? So we play the game now and we pick up the item. Now we only have one item and we require 2 items for crafting. So we click here, it only says item found once, but it does not say all items are found and we can craft the item and spawn it into our player's inventory. Because once again, we only have one item. And that's the logic here. Because it's now checking for every single item that is inside of our inventory and saying, okay, so there's only one inventory, or there's only one item inside of our inventory. So I'm gonna run this for loop only once because we start with this. So it doesn't matter the amount here. It's just going to check once if there's only one item in our inventory, which is good because that's the way you get the amount of items that are correctly displayed and not inverted. So here, instead of maybe printing here, we can remove that, and we don't really need to print this either, so we can just put a bracket there. We can also remove these lines because we don't need this commented code anymore. So now we just basically want to add the item. So the difficult part is actually done. This is the mathematical part, I guess you could say. So we're gonna go to our inventory, just say add item, game object, item. Okay. Let me see. The inventory was assigned to the player, right? I just want to ensure. So we go to our player object, player inventory. There we go. So good thing we actually received our player here, because now we're going to be able to say that we want to get the component inventory of our player. So we're going to say player.get component inventory, and we can say maybe just add item, and we can basically, we need to set an item inside of our parentheses here, which is going to be the parameter. There we go, that's the name. And we want to set that item to obviously which item it is actually that we are spawning right now. So to make it easier for ourselves, we're actually going to go ahead and do like this. We're going to put a comment line in here so that we don't get a compiler error here. We're also going to, oh yeah, I did this actually without the recording part, but basically this is how you see it right now, right? So what you want to do is you want to add a public game object, this item. There we go. So this is going to resemble the item that we are crafting so that we can add it to our player's inventory. So we're going to remove the comments line now, and add item, we can basically say this item. And we want to go to Unity. Before we forget doing this, we want to go to craftable item, and let me see here. Boom. So we put, let's say one is enough. And boom, there we go. So this item will also be consistent of the water item that we are crafting right now, just for testing purposes. If you have any other prefabs you would like to spawn, you're free to do so. Now, like I said, we are going to spawn a prefab, or we are going to add an item that is a prefab to our player. In order to do that, we first and foremost have to spawn that prefab in our game. So what do? We basically do like this. We can say game object spawn the item equal to instantiate, which is going to be what was this item, right? Yeah. So yeah, we can actually change it later, but we're gonna instantiate this item, which is going to be at the transform dot position and quaternion dot identity. There we go. So it's going to be spawned at our player's position, and oh, actually we we have to say player.transform.position. There we go. And maybe instead of actually adding the item manually to our player, we can just kind of pick it up as player. So because we're gonna be spawning that item anyway. So what we can do is we can go back to Unity, play the game, and pick this item up. Click here, boom, it spawns, right? So we just pick it up basically, and there it goes. We could also, like you said, as you saw, we actually spawned it a little bit further from the player. So what we can do is we can come back to this line again and let it actually manually add the item, and we can set the position of the item that is going to be spawned to be we can say pause, okay? And we can create a new there we go, vector3 equal to new vector3, and this is going to be player.transform.position plus 5, player.transform.position, and then player.transform.position plus 5. There we go. So it's going to be spawning the item a little bit offset. Oh, and obviously we set a name for the vector3 as well before we forget about that. We also need to set x-axis for this because it's obviously the x-axis, y-axis for this, and the z-axis for this, so that we specify everything. One more important thing to do is we're not adding this item, which is the prefab, we're adding the spawned item. So we're gonna change that to spawned item, go back to Unity, and as per usual, we're gonna test this out and ensure that it works perfectly fine, because if it does, we're pretty much done with the episode here. So we pick up item, we click here, boom, it crafts. Let's see here. Oh, I see the issue here actually. The problem is that we are trying to, you know, add the item, which is pretty obvious. But inside of our inventory script, we have a for loop for the amount of slots that we have. Now the problem is this is only being run once as soon as the player clicks the button, or that, you know, the element itself for crafting. That's not enough for everything inside of this for loop to run, because this has to run inside of a void update or every frame or every second or something like that, and it's not doing it right now. So we can do instead, we can just kind of keep it very simple for now and just kind of, you know what, we're gonna put a comment line for this and we're gonna come back to it later because I want to obviously fix it. But we can for now also make sure that it literally spawns on the player, so that we can pick it up as easily as possible. So we go ahead and play the game. We pick up our items. I did not pick up the water. There we go. And we craft. Boom, the item is spawned, and then we can just walk on it and pick it up. For now, we're gonna leave it here, guys. Like I said, this is the beginning of it, even though this is pretty much literally the entire mechanism for that. The mechanics are done now, but we just have to kind of tweak this a little bit. We left a comment line for that to remember that we actually have to, you know, change it up. And if I ever forget, let me know, even though a comment is pretty obvious that we're gonna come back to it. But yeah, guys, that is pretty much it for this episode. That's how you create a crafting system. I actually am happy, am satisfied with how this turned out for now, at least. We're obviously gonna make it look and feel more professional and more smooth, but for now, obviously, just the mechanism, just the code, you know, everything works fine. If it doesn't work, then we fix that, and then we get into, you know, giving the looks and all that kind of stuff. So like I said, guys, if you did enjoy and enjoy your time and want to see more of these videos, make sure to drop a like. Those thumbs ups literally make my day. And besides, not only about the number, but I also want to see the amount of people that are actually interested in seeing more, because if you aren't interested, I suppose you don't leave a like, because if I get 1,000 views every video, I suppose that everyone has a YouTube account, or maybe half the people have a YouTube account, then you'll be able to leave a like. Literally just click that button and say, hey, I want to see more of these videos. And you can also leave a comment down below if you have any feedback, if you have any suggestions, if you have any questions, if you missed out on something, if you would like me to describe something in comment, let me know in the comments. It's there for that reason. Or if you just want to say hi, you're always welcome. We also have a Discord server if you're new around here, so make sure to join that, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click that bell notification as well so that you stay up to tune and you get notified whenever we upload. And with that being said, guys, I think I'm done. I plugged everything. I plugged everything except for Twitter. My Twitter is in the link, by the way, or in the description. The link is in the description. No, but I'm joking, obviously. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, leave a like, please, if you did enjoy and if you want to see more, because I want to make it obvious to as of who is actually interested in watching more. And with that being said, I'll either catch you in the comments or in the Discord server. See you guys. Have a good night. Peace out.
This world fire, so